Hi there. I just wanted to outline the book group guidelines for the book group project that is at the end of the semester. This is your final project for the class, and I just wanted to go over just some reminders about that project. So all the ground rules here are listed on this form, and I wanted to just go through them very quickly. So everybody receives his or her their own grade. Um, I'm going to have us in a group, and I'm going to ask some questions for anybody in the group to answer. I'm going to ask some questions for everybody in the group to answer, and I'm going to give each group member their own question to answer. So I'm going to be giving you some time at the beginning of class to respond to these questions so that you have some notes and you have a chance to reflect on what you might respond. So you guys can have any notes necessary for any of the components listed below here, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So I encourage you to use Sparks Notes, as it says here, supplementary materials, Sparks Notes, watch a movie if there's a movie based on your novel, and any reviews or interpretations or analysis of your novel is okay to bring into that discussion and to use to prepare. So because I'm going to ask you to go back to specific places in the text when you give your response to your question or your questions that you're responding to. So how do you prepare for this project? Read the novel. So just because you're watching the movie or looking at the Sparks Notes or other study guides doesn't mean that you don't have to read the book. You do, because again, you're going to need to go back to specific places, and I'm going to ask you your own personal ideas and interpretations and feelings about the novel. So I want you to be able to reflect back to that text, and the only way you can do so is to read the novel in its entirety. And then you can compile notes, meet with the group members or consult with your group members to gain overall impressions or to have your questions answered that you still had about the novel. Because you each get your own grade, you aren't dependent upon anybody else in your group to have read the novel. So maybe they decide that they don't need those points and they can get a 0, and that's fine. They don't have to be part of the discussion, or maybe they didn't read the novel in its entirety. That's fine. They will get their own grade, but they might be able to work as a consultant for you if they did read the novel or they do have some understanding of the text. They might be able to share with you some of their insight. So that's why you guys are in a group, to use each other as resources. Research others' ideas about the novel. So look at what other people have to say, critics and literary analysts. See what they have to say about the novel. And then, of course, ask questions. I'm here to help you. I do not expect that you can do this on your own. This is an introduction course, so I'm not expecting that you can understand the author's writing style or will know everything about context. So I am looking or expecting to help you with this project. So please come to me with any questions. So these are the areas about the novel that I will be asking you questions. So the first one is guideline questions. So this is where you will really pose the questions that you had about this novel as you were reading it or right as you finished reading it, before you got a chance to do any research or consult any other resources. So I'll ask you what your guideline question was, and then what was the answer to that guideline question that you found or that you came up with after doing a little bit of work. The next section is passages. So there's 2 different sets of passages that I want you to collect for your novel and for the discussion. One of those passages, or one of those sets of passages, I should say, are places in the novel that are important to the overall story. So maybe it's where the main character was introduced, or maybe it was where you see like the climax of the novel or the action, or maybe it's where the conflict was created. Just these are just places in the novel that are important to the overall story. So you'll have a few of those, and then you'll have a few passages that are indications of the author's writing style. So maybe this author goes back and forth in character voices. So you'll have a few different passages that talk about that shift or cover that shift. Or maybe this author is very descriptive and uses a lot of technical terminology of a particular field or subject. So you'll choose some passages that are indicative of that language and that those particular jargon. So those are passages. And the narrator point of view, I'm going to ask you, who's telling us the story? Is it a character in the story? Is it an objective narrator, a third-person narrator? And is that narrator reliable? Do we have reason to suspect that they are too biased to really give us a complete or accurate perspective of the story? And how does that affect the story? So narrator point of view. Then is the next one is plot summary, and that is where you will outline the major 6 to 12 events that take place in the novel. I'm just noticing that this word is misspelled, so I'm going to fix it right now. Denouement. The plot summary is where you outline like just what are the major events that happen in the story. So as we're progressing through the story, what are the major things that happen to the main character? And again, it says 6 to 12 main events, more like 6. There are some longer novels on the list that some groups in the past have elected to read that had a lot of different events. So that's why I said 6 to 12, but it's probably going to be more like 6 major events. Character outline. This is where you just give an overview of the major characters, the main players in this story, and you give a brief description of each of them. So, and maybe talk about how they work together or against each other. So again, this is your outline of the characters, and tell me like what kind of character are they? Are they a foil character or a flat character? So this is for character outline. Then you have context or connection. So this is where you place the novel in a larger environment. Excuse me, where you consider like what was the time period for this novel, both when it was published, so when did it emerge, and also what time period was this novel set in. So you can make connections to this novel and its environment, because every piece of art is created in context. So why does it matter that at this time in history this novel was written? Like if it's an apocalyptic novel, well, why was that popular, or why was that interesting at early 2000s? What was going on at the time? Or if we have a lot of financial crises for our characters in this novel, what was going on at the time that this novel was published? So again, here is the idea, is to make a connection between the novel and the society within which it emerges, both, as it says here, both past and present. And the last thing I'm going to be asking you guys to reflect on is the theme. And this is where you, as it says, bring it all together. The passages, the characters, the context, the plot, the narrator, all of these other components should really be adding and building towards an overall purpose for this text. So there's a difference between a subject and a theme. A subject is a topic. So that's where you start when you're considering a theme for the novel that you're working with. So maybe you are considering reading a novel that has a subject or a topic of family or wartime or society or inequality or justice or friendship or secrets and deceit. So you take that subject, and in order to reflect on a theme, you just ask, what does this novel say about that subject? What is it indicating about friendships or wartime or secrecy or justice. So, and a theme is not a moral or a lesson, right? It doesn't teach us something because these novels are literature. They're not just popular fiction. So they're not trying to give a preachy little easy message. They are very intricate, developed, rich, and layered um, observations about life and about the human experience, what it is to be human in the world, and what that experience of being human is like. And so they are not just simple summaries of some little lessons or morals like don't judge a book by its cover, or war is bad. It's a little bit more complex than that. So what are some of the interesting observations that this novel is making about this subject or these subjects? So that is what I'm looking for with theme. And again, remember that these questions that I ask you to respond to, you're going to have a chance to be reflective and thoughtful and think about your responses. And you always, with every single one of these components, you want to go back to the text every time to offer places that carry these passages, that carry these themes, that relay the context, that outline these characters. So you want to go back to your text as evidence and support for whatever observations that you make. So don't fail to do that. And if you can give page numbers when you do that, that's even better. So hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more concretely this assignment. And more than anything, I just want you guys to read the novel, invest a little time in understanding its components, and then share with the class.